Hey everybody, I am here today with my good friend Claudia Garbert from Wired for Success. And
Hey.
basically, what we want to talk about is some of the early stages of building your business and having some sort of balance. And this is where Claudia really comes in. So, Claudia, please give us a little bit of background into what you do, how you do it, and we'll get into it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on today. So, as you said, my name is Claudia Garbert, and I'm a molecular biologist turned mindset and high performance coach who teaches ambitious and mission driven entrepreneurs the fundamental mechanisms at the intersection of physiology and psychology that really drive human behavior, achievement, and well being. And what this means is just so, in other words, what I do is I help my clients ditch the hustle, overwhelm, and busy work so that they can show up as authentic and confident leaders and build their legacy. And I'm also the host of the entrepreneurship podcast, the Wired for Success podcast, where I recently interviewed Jonathan. So if you want to catch that episode, go and check it out. And in general, on my show, we talk about all things science, self development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. So, when we talk about building a business that allows you to find balance, I like to start at the very beginning of how you consider building your business. Because what I see oftentimes is that, well, let's just call it out. Not all businesses are created equal, right? We have to be very conscious about creating a business in a way that actually supports our long term goals and aspirations. So, what do I mean by that? Well, the short term and more superficial goal of every business is to make money, right? But if money is the only thing that drives you in developing and building your business, then you're prone to sacrificing other important dimensions of your life, like your health or your relationships, for instance. So, in order to avoid that, you want to be very careful to include those dimensions in your business concept and create a daily schedule that really reflects your priorities in life. And I totally get that in the early phases of building your business, you might have to do a lot more work than is sustainable in the long run, just to get the ball rolling and to create momentum. And I'm not saying that this is wrong. By the way, when I say balance, I don't necessarily mean spending an equal number of hours working and not working. And I also think that while boundaries are important, you don't have to force artificial balance by reinforcing those strict boundaries either. It's okay to keep things a little more flexible, because when you look at nature, you will notice that everything goes in cycles. You have circadian rhythms that dictate when you're awake and when you're asleep. You have the different seasons. Everywhere you look, you have this ebb and flow. And going with the flow, so to speak, is actually a great way to create real balance. The
So,
problem, the problem I see over and over again is that so many entrepreneurs have no ebb and flow in their lives. They are just constantly hustling and grinding. And what starts out as this short term strategy to create momentum develops into unsustainable habits that lead to burnout and destroy lives over time.
I think we're all guilty of that sometimes. One of my mentors really helped me with saying, you're never really going to have true balance if you're building type of business that you want until it gets to a certain level, and then you're probably still pushing. But to be present in the moment, be where your feet are, with your friends, with your family. And after I adopted that, it's really helped kind of unwind what I do. And I think, I mean, I've been utilizing certain tools for a very long time to try to help that balance. I like what you said about, hey, we're not saying you have to have 8 hours at work, go home and have, 8 or 12 hours. It doesn't have to be even time wise. But what
Yeah.
are some of the tools that you help your clients use or adapt to kind of find a little bit more balance?
So what I suggest is something that I developed a framework around. So I've created a framework that is called my Sustainable Success Framework, and it's built on 4 pillars because I think those really give you the foundation for sustainable success so that you don't burn out in the long run. So um, the first pillar of the framework is really about understanding how your mind works and what drives you, just so that you can stop sabotaging yourself and get out of that constant cycle of anxiety, hard work, and overwhelm that's leading you straight into burnout. Because oftentimes it's not so much the time that we spend working on our business, it's all the self doubt and the worry and anxiety that comes with it, what tips us over the edge, right? What gets us to the point of burnout. So that's the first pillar of my framework, to really address those underlying patterns and reprogram your mind where necessary. And the second pillar of my framework is all about nourishing your body. So that's the physiology side of it, just to make sure that you build this solid foundation for sustainable success. And together we work on improving your diet, exercise, relaxation, and sleep so that your body works like a well-oiled machine and you always have enough energy to perform at your best. Because we all know what it's like if you're sleep deprived, if you don't eat well, if you don't exercise, right? You get to that point where you just have no energy and no motivation left. And that's the physiology side of it. So it all works hand in hand. You have to train your mind, but you also have to train your body. And the third pillar is really about connection and relationships. So this is about, say, healing past trauma that stops us from showing up as our authentic selves. It's about finding your voice. It's about connecting to a deeper purpose and about sharing your unique message with the world. And then the last pillar is really about creating those high performance habits that bring all of these different aspects together and align your body, mind, and soul so that you can really embody your goals and live your purpose. And so the first 3 pillars, you can maybe say that they are more about awareness and information. And the fourth pillar is about implementation, because that's something I see happening so often. People get the information, but they don't implement it. So that's the important step, though. You have to implement it. If you're not doing it, you're not getting the results. So this part is really about creating those habits, creating space in your time, space in your day, and the time to actually do it. And then creating those simple systems that help you stay consistent and on track. So this can look different for every person, because I don't like these cookie cutter approaches. What I like to do is deliver really high level customized support and find the things that help you get to where you want to go, if that makes sense.
It does. So give us an example of, let's say, a schedule that you would implement for a client. I know that what I do, I want to get up early. I've been utilizing a cold plunge or an ice bath, typically about 5 minutes while I'm listening to a podcast. After that, I run to the gym, work out in the gym. Once I'm done, I hit the sauna, I shower, I get into the office, typically about an hour before anyone else gets here. That gives me a little bit of quiet time to work on larger projects that I've been working on, and then typically around 8:30, that's when my day starts, and everyone else comes in around 9 o'clock. On my unwind is pretty, I think, pretty standard, in my opinion. Get home around 7 o'clock, spend time, eat dinner, spend time with the family, and then I read before I go to bed. That allows me to help get my mind right. And then either in the sauna I visualize, or at night I try a little bit of visualization. And for the most part, when I'm keeping to that type of system, everything seems to fall into place.
Right.
Now, it's not a one size fits all, but I'd like your input on some of the systems and strategies that you utilize to help your clients.
That sounds pretty amazing what you're doing, actually. So I'm using similar tools. And let's just take my morning routine for instance. So one of the things that I'm not sure if you haven't mentioned it, but maybe you're doing it. So one of the things that's really important is to get light into your eyes first thing in the morning. So you want to have the sunlight exposure in the morning because it really helps you set your circadian rhythms. So this is one thing I try to do every morning. So I wake up earlier in the summer because I go with the seasons. So in the summer, I have no problem getting up at 5 in the morning and then going out, and I usually go for a run. So before I get up, I have to take a step back, because what I do before I get up is I meditate, I do breath work, then I go out, I go for a run because it combines exercise, it combines sunlight exposure. Then I also listen to either audiobooks or podcasts while I go for a run, because when you exercise, your brain is in a great state of mind for learning. There are lots of different factors like neurochemicals in your brain that help you with learning. So you can tap into that, and that's what I do. And it's also nice because it's the one time, it's a time of the day where I can really focus. My mind is still fresh and I don't have anyone else distracting me. So that's a great time for learning. I do cold exposure afterwards. So I have a cold shower. I don't have an ice bath. I wish I had a sauna. I do the next best thing. I either have a very hot shower or a hot bath, and then I do the cold exposure, because both are really, really great tools. So that's my morning routine. So I do exercise fasted, and then I have breakfast after that. I do have carbs for breakfast. So I usually have fruit salad and yogurt, because your brain, I think the brain needs fuel. So it's one of the most energy demanding organs, well, the most energy demanding organ in your body. It needs sugar. So for me, at least, I function best if I have sugar, but I like to consume the healthy version, like just fruits, which works well for me. I do a little bit of intermittent fasting as well. So I try to eat my dinner not too late in the evening, around maybe between 6 and 7. If I have it too early, I've experimented with that, then I'm so hungry at night that I wake up, which is not a good thing. So you always want to experiment and see what works for you. And sometimes you might just have to adjust tiny little things until you have found the balance that you're looking for.
It's definitely not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
But that's there's a lot of similarities. Now, I heard that visualization when you're exercising, if it's possible, it has increased, and I don't know if this is scientifically proven, but has increased benefits, or it locks it in a little bit more vividly because you have your endorphins moving and everything's flowing. Right. So having, let's say, a vision board, but you take a picture of it and put it on your phone when you're working out, or if you're doing cardio, can actually help stimulate and kind of lock in what you're visualizing. And I didn't really believe in visualization. If you asked me about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. I've just seen way too much proof that there's something to it. And it actually kind of calms me down and helps me focus. And I actually like doing it if I can in the morning and before I go to bed, because it gets you, hopefully you're creatively thinking about these things subconsciously when you're sleeping. I don't know if that actually.
It is true. Those are the best times to be doing it, early in the morning and just before you go to sleep, because that's when your brain is in the perfect state for these kind of suggestions. And it really, really helps. So I was skeptical, just like you, just a few years ago. I was like, not sure, it's too woo-woo, too out there. But actually, I mean, when you think about it, it's the thing that every great athlete does, right? And they so there are lots of studies as well that show that it helps, and I found it to be helpful as well. I think it's because the more you repeat it, the more it gets established in your subconscious mind. And after all, your subconscious mind, it is what steers you in, say, 80 to 90%, or some say even 95% of your daily actions.
Mhm.
It's your subconscious mind that is guiding you. So if you can give your subconscious mind direction, that's amazing, right? So if you can focus on what you want to achieve rather than what you don't want to achieve, like your fears and your worries, then this is huge. And that's exactly what I help my clients with as well. So visualization is definitely a great tool.
I think that's pretty important when you break it down like that. Because if you think about it, how many people are attracting the wrong things with their thoughts, right? They're worried about what could happen if, or they always think of worst case scenario as opposed to, hey, how do we make this work? It's focusing on the problem or focusing on the solution. And typically, the people that usually focus on the solution wind up figuring it out a lot faster with a lot less damage, and they're growing at a much faster clip.
Yeah.
How would somebody actively focus on retraining that part of their brain, especially for an entrepreneur? I think that's so important.
Yeah, it is so important. And I think the answer to that is, again, very complex. And it has, I'm not sure if there's a one size fits all solution. So, what I look at with my clients is we go through their past experiences as well, because your nervous system is trained by your experiences. So, if you had some traumatic events in your life, and by traumatic, I don't mean a car accident or something like that. It doesn't have to be as dramatic. It could be just things like rejection that you experienced, or a failure of some sort that really got to you. Then you have an emotional response. And that emotional response is something that's programmed into your mind and into your body. So you also store information in your body. That's, for example, when every time you think about one of those events, you feel like your muscles get tense, and you start to have this panic reaction. And we have to work on overcoming those past experiences and to really reprogram them. And to do that, we have to go back and look at them and reframe what happened and change the way that your nervous system responds to these kind of events. And that's where we can reprogram your mind. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. So, if there was a couple of really key things, you met somebody or you were speaking at a conference that you wanted to highlight that an entrepreneur could do today to put themselves on a better path, to find a little bit more clarity and a little bit more balance, what would you say those things are that they should actively focus on today?
Well, they're actually exactly the steps that are included in my sustainable success framework, because those are the things that help you integrate all the different dimensions of your life. So number one, really look at what are the driving forces. What is your mind drawn to? Are you focusing on the problems? Are you focusing on the solutions? Are you achieving from a place of fear and avoidance because you're trying to avoid something that's uncomfortable? Or are you achieving something from a place of, say, curiosity and exploration and fun, and you enjoy what you do? So there's a huge difference. It's kind of like the difference between working out because you hate your body or because you love your body. You're doing, on the surface, you're doing the same things, but you're going at it from a completely different angle, and it makes a huge difference. So really look at what's driving you, and then reprogram what's not serving you anymore. So that would be number one. The next one would be to really look at what you do on a daily basis that nourishes your body. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating a healthy diet? All these kind of things, they are important. Do you drink enough water? Hydration is key.
Yeah.
It really is.
No.
And then the third one, um, look at your social connections. Humans are social creatures. So we want to feel connected. And if we're feeling alone and isolated, we're generally not happy. Of course, there are introverts, there are extroverts, some are social butterflies, some are not. But you have to find the level of connection that makes you feel good. And then you have to really work on creating those connections and relationships and make them last, because you don't want to sacrifice them. So the last one would be to really put all of that, to really implement all of that by creating the habits that allow you to have a time and a space in your calendar for all of these things, so that you can bring them together and nothing falls off your plate.
Yeah. That's easier said than done. But
I
yes,
know.
easier said than done. One of the things that I've picked up, and I try to teach my entire team, if you don't consistently utilize and leverage social media, it's you're leaving a lot on the table. You're not making the impact that you could, and I think a lot of people struggle because that's something that they don't plan out, right?
Mhm.
And part of that balance is having that. I feel having that schedule completely dialed in. So you know, taking a little bit of time on the weekend or when it's quiet, going in and kind of crafting everything so it's not on the fly, actually relieves some of the pressure Monday through Friday that, hey, I already know what my content schedule is going to look like. I know, what my message is, how I'm saying it, where I'm delivering it. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, if they just took a step back
Mhm.
and kind of came up with a system that works for them, would not have the level of stress, anxiety, and worry that most business owners do.
That is very true. That is very true. Be prepared, but still flexible enough.
Yes.
So I think you can be too strict. So if you have too much of a tunnel vision, that can be problematic. But if you don't plan anything, that's problematic too. It's like a continuum, and both ends of the spectrum are bad. Like
Yes.
you don't want to do nothing, and you don't want to be too strict. You have to find the Goldilocks zone in the middle that allows you to have things planned, have a frame that works for you, but also be flexible enough to, life happens, and sometimes you will have to adapt and you might have to pivot. And if that freaks you out, then that's also not a good thing.
No.
So yeah, stay
Absolutely not.
flexible.
That's funny. Claudia, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up here? And I can't thank you enough. I think this was incredible. A lot of people are going to get a whole lot out of this because I think you address one of the biggest concerns that most entrepreneurs have is, how to dial in themselves to be high performing leaders, high performing entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I see a lot is people are ashamed to seek out help. And that is something that just creates so much tension in their lives and so much heartache. I mean, there's no shame in asking for help. So if someone is not happy with the business they have built, it's okay to reach out and ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It means you're a smart person asking for help.
I love that.
So, if anyone needs help, I want them to know that they can always reach out. It's okay to ask for help. There's no judgment. And yeah, if I can help them, I'd love that.
Awesome. Where can they find you?
The best way to find me is probably on my website. That's www wiredforsuccess.solutions, or they can also find me on LinkedIn at Claudia Gabert. I've also started a LinkedIn newsletter recently, which they can subscribe to. So I share my 3 top tips of the month from the science, self-development, and entrepreneurship categories.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, guys. Please follow Claudia. This is our second time chatting, and it just gets better and better. So I really appreciate it because this is something we all struggle with, you know. And I'll tell you, I just want to add, like, every top performer has people they go to, right? Every CEO of a large major company has someone that they run things by. They have their support system set up. They don't advertise it. Okay. So why are you any different? All right. Reach out if you need help. You know, we all need a little bit of guidance here and there. So reach out, guys. Claudia, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we'll catch everybody on the next one.
Bye.